Lesson 12, Capstone, Enhancing the Confetti Cuisine with Express.js. After some consideration, I decided that it would be easier to rely on a web framework to assist me in building a web application for Confetti Cuisine. Building custom routes and application logic has become a tedious task, so I'm converting my application to use Express.js. I still want the application to have home, courses, and sign-up pages. I need to convert the routes to use keywords and syntax found in Express.js. I need to make sure that I save my static assets out of the public directory and have all necessary package.json configuration set up for launching the application locally. When I feel the need to make this transition, I'll start by initializing the project with npm init. To begin this site redesign, I'm going to create a new directory called Confetti Cuisine and enter that folder. Within that project folder in terminal, I'll initialize the application package.json with npm init. Remembering the configurators that I previously set, I'll keep the default settings for the project name and use my entry point main.js. Now that my package.json is set up, I'm going to add a start script under scripts, which will allow me to run the application by using npm start instead of node with the file name. I add start node main.js to my list of scripts. So node main.js, the script has been added. The last step in the initialization process is adding the main.js web framework, EJS templating, and a layout and HTTP status codes packages to this project. To do so, I run npm install express EJS, express EJS layouts, and HTTP status codes in the command line. So all my dependencies have been added. Yes. Before I add any new files, I'm going to set up my application's directory structure. The final project structure will look like listing 12.2. I'll add the following: a views folder to hold my HTML pages. Here's the views folder. A controllers folder to hold any routing functions. The controllers folder. A public folder with CSS, JS, and images folder within to hold my client-side assets. So this is it. Building the application. Now that the application is set up with Express.js installed, I'll create my main.js application file. Although this file will resemble my HTTP module version, writing it from scratch will eliminate a ton of headaches in converting line by line. My main.js will look like the code in listing 12.3. The first line of main.js requires the contents of express.js package, assigning them to a constant called express. As with the app constant in the first version of this application, I'll instantiate the express object, representing this object's main application framework as another constant called app. The app constant will have the ability to set up a get route, listening for requests made to the root URL and responding with Express.js send function called on the response. I can finally set up the server to listen on port 3000 and log a message to my console when it's up and running. With this logic in place, I can start the application by running npm start in my command line. The JSON and URL encoded Express.js middleware functions will be used as middleware that interpret incoming request bodies for me. In main.js, I'll add the code in the next listing. Now my application is ready to analyze data with within incoming requests. Next, I need to create routes to reach views in my application. So the code in listing 12.4 tells Express.js app to use body parser for processing URL encoded and JSON parameters. Adding more routes. Now that my application has a starting point, I'm going to create routes for the courses and sign up pages. Additionally, I'll add a post route to handle submissions made from the form on the sign up page. First, I create a home controller in my controllers folder, which is where I'll store the functions my routes will use. I need to require this controller by adding constant home control equals to require in main.js. I add the code in the next listing to my home controller below my application's first route. All three of these functions respond with an EJS page reflecting the requested route. I need to create the following views: courses.ejs, contact.ejs, and thanks.ejs. Controller, controller. So these have been set up. In my main.js, I add the following routes and modify my original home page route to use my home controller too, as shown in listing 12.6. The first route handles get requests made to view course listings. For the most part, this route behaves similarly to the home page. The route for the contact page also listens for get requests, as most people will be expecting a sign up form on this page when the contact URL is requested. The last route is for post request targeting the contact URL. The get route is used internally to view who submitted the request to get in contact. The post route is used by the sign up form on the contact page. Now that all the routes are defined, I'm still missing the bulk of the content. It's time to add and render some views. With Express.js, my views are going to be cleaner and easier to render. I need to create the views listed in 12.1. So the views listed there are layer.ejs, index.ejs, courses.ejs, contact.ejs, thanks.ejs, and area.ejs. So we've got contact.ejs, courses.ejs, area.ejs, index.ejs, layer.ejs, and thanks.ejs. I'll start by generating my application's layout view, which will handle what the navigation and general site structure looks like from page to page. For the layout to work, I need to include it in my main application file, right below my initialization of express.js module, as shown in listing 12.7. First, I require the express.js layouts module to allow me to use the layout.ejs. Then I set up the application server to use the EJS rendering template. Last, I set the application server to use the recently required layouts module. This way, when a new view is rendered, it goes through the layout.ejs file. I'll add this file. I'll add this file called layer.ejs to my views folder. The key component of this file includes the syntax, which will be replaced by a target once rendered content. Each of the following views will use this layer to provide visual consistency and to avoid repetition of code between lines. Within the views folder, I'm going to create index.ejs, courses.ejs, contact.ejs, thanks.ejs, and area.ejs files. Like the layered file, these views rendered as embedded JavaScript allow me to dynamically feed content to the pages from the server file. After creating index.ejs, I changed my home page route to render the index page in place of sending plain text. The one view I need to focus on is contact.ejs, where I'll have prospective students fill out a form, submitting a post request to my application sign-up route. That form will look like the HTML in the next listing. Notice that the form action is contact and the form method is post. When the form is submitted, it will make a post requested to the contact route. I should be all set. If I named my routes to match the render to match and render their corresponding views, I should be able to launch my app and see those views rendered within the layout I built. The only thing missing is my app's ability to serve images and other static files, which I cover next. In my first take of this application using HTTP, saving static assets became a big mess. With every new asset I added to my project directory, I needed to create a new route and handle it appropriately. Luckily, Express.ejs handles this task nicely, requiring virtually no effort on my part to handle any and all static files I want my application to serve. To enable static assets, I'll use express.js static function by adding app.use express static public below the initialization of express.js in my application file. Here. The last major step is converting the app to an EJS app is using dynamic content in the views, passing content to views. Confetti Cuisine often modifies its cost listings to the application. Its cost listings, so the application is better off not showing those courses on a static web page. With Express.js, passing content from the server logic to the view is a piece of cake. For this app, I need to display an array of courses offerings as a JavaScript object. Then I can send the object to my rendered view. I add the code in listing 12.9 to homecontrollers.js by assigning the courses variable to an array of JavaScript objects. I can use this list and target specific keys in my views. The res.render method allows me to pass the courses object to the view and refer to it as offered courses on that page. To benefit from this feature, I need to add some EJS and HTML to loop through the offered courses list and courses.ejs and print the relevant content as shown in listing 12.10. Now that the application is complete, my course page looks like figure 12.1. Instead of modifying my courses EJS view every time a modification is made to run the course offerings, I can change the array in my main application file. Running the application is the easy part now. So courses.ejs. So this is where it's going to be looped. I should anticipate that things won't go exactly as planned, so it's always smart to prepare for certain errors and handle them accordingly. Soon, when this array of courses is replaced by contents from a persistent database, I won't need to make any code changes to update the course listing. handling errors. An application handling most expected outcomes ensures a fairly consistent and good experience for its users. I know that my application may be missing some foolproof logic, though I prefer to send my own custom error messages to my client's audience when those errors occur. For error handling, I'll create an error controllers.js to store my functions as shown in listing 12.11. The first function handles all the requests not previously handled, which fits the category of URLs visited without an active route and results in a 404 error, serving error.ejs. The last function handles any internal server errors that occur. Instead of necessarily crashing and scaring the audience away, I prefer a friendlier message. Then I add routes to correspond to these functions. I'll add the routes in listing 12.2 to trigger the functions in my error controller if no proceeding routes respond to a request. I need to require this controller by adding const error control equals to require a controller's error controller to the top of my main.js file. Now my application is ready to handle errors and launch. When a URL is visited without a corresponding route, users see my cat Hendrix relaxing on the error page. So let's see if we just say local 300/go, which has no route. This is the cat. This is the error message. If something went wrong or the page you are looking for is not available. With this project, I redefined the node.js project file structure to fit a web framework. I used npm to install 3 external packages, then I rebuilt the main application using express.js syntax. To create a path for specific URLs, I set up new routes using express.js keywords. For a consistent user face, I used layouts with EJS using express.js static library. I set up static assets to be served to the client through my public folder. Last, I added content to the main project application file and set up that content to be served dynamically to one of my views. With consistent practice of these techniques and proper error handling, I can use express.js to build future applications in a few steps. Within new features such as layouts and dynamic content, I can try to send content to other views in my application or try modifying the layout as it's used throughout the app. In Unit 3, I discuss how to organize application code around persistent data with express.js. So these are the courses, the with content. So here it was a post, we posted the client info, so it has been submitted.